Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of TFT Study Hall with your host, Frodan.
And hi, I'm Dishsoap, newly crowned.
That's right. That's the trophy for winning the World Championship, right?
Yeah, I just got it. It looks cool, but it is not very comfortable. So I'll be taking it off right after the intro. But
I don't think you're supposed to necessarily wear it. I think it's just themed like a crown. It's supposed to be a
yeah,
trophy first, man. So you can take it off whenever you want, but it looks good.
I mean, there was like a bunch of like padding and stuff like that. They want you to like at least like put it on once or twice. But
Okay,
yeah,
is it heavy or is it like plasticky? Like, tell me what the material build's like.
it doesn't feel plasticky, but I don't think it's like full metal. I don't know. It's like it's definitely a little heavy though.
Okay,
But
okay.
not
So it's like not a Fisher Price Burger King hat.
yeah.
But
It actually like came in like this really big suitcase. Like I don't
okay.
know. It came in like a really just huge blue suitcase. And I was like what the hell is this? Like everything was in like all the lettering and stuff was in Chinese, and I opened up it's just the crown, like under like 2 feet of padding
Oh,
on all directions. They really wanted to keep it safe.
that's fun. I wish that they actually had a butler come out with a white glove and open up very mysteriously, and all of a sudden it glows. Like, whoa, that'd be really fun.
Yeah.
But hey, listen, if you want to keep it on all episode, more power to you,
No, I'm
but feel
good.
free to take it off whenever. You should just find a trophy case because
Yeah.
that's not going to be the only trophy you win in TFT, right?
Sure. No way.
That's right. Got to put the victories behind you in stream. Biggest patch in TFT history has dropped 14.18, and then they B-patched because there were some pretty significant exploits.
hmm
If you guys didn't hear, there was one where it was like if you slammed adaptive helm mid-fight, it gave you like infinite mana or something like that. So they needed to like ship a hotfix to try and fix that before it got out of hand. And then we found out there's like a ton more bugs, but there's also a ton more content. So, kind of just first reactions. How are you enjoying it? It's like a completely different meta there so from last patch.
I think it's interesting. I have like most of my issues with with the patch is that a lot of the stuff like the new. Oh, I guess I wouldn't want to say new, but it feels like a lot of stuff is kind of just too weak right now, and I don't think that was the goal with all this stuff, with all like the reworks and stuff. And I don't even think like the quote unquote new and the rework stuff is weak. It's more just that like staple comps that existed in the previous meta are just like kind of unplayable now, which sucks a little bit. Um, but I mean, I guess it's just like shifting now. There's like new stuff to play, I guess.
It feels like it's another case of just taking turns. Like for one patch, it was like this half of the roster was really dominant, the other half was not really strong, and now it feels like it's rearranging. There are a couple of still, standard comps that are still doing well. Like Portal was good last patch, still looks good this patch. But we'll go ahead and just dive into it and talk about the tier list and start off from the S tier and then kind of frame our conversation that way. So from the very top, we got Fairy, which is the big point of conversation and where the meta is warping around, largely because Fairy emblem, the vertical, has been restructured. Now it's no longer 246, it's 357. And they also made it so that if you hit 5 Fairy, the midpoint of that trait, you're still able to get a second item. And that's actually put a ton of power into the vertical and less about the splash. Before you used to splash like the Tristana for the Kog'Maw, or the Rakan for the Katarina or something like that. So do you like these changes to Fairy, and how do you feel like it's changed a lot of the way you approach the trait?
I'm a little off on it. I think they made a good job making the trait more attractive, as in the higher levels, because previously when it was 246, 6 fairy was just completely pointless. Like I don't know that trait. I don't understand the idea behind that trait. But 6 was always good, and 2 was like something you could easily flex in for like Callista and Milio, and now you just kind of can't. And that's like one of my main problems is that I feel like the standard like Callista flex line went away, and it's now more like way more centered on just like Fairy and like having the Callista and Rakan pop up the most. I think there are some negatives to it, as in she really wants to be played with like she wants to get played with a lot less units than she did previously. But like her as an individual unit is definitely stronger with the Fairy changes.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of how in the previous set for Inkborn Fables at 11, we had a meta where Ashe, as a backline Rageblade holder, was pretty flexible with the kind of board that you would build around it. And all of a sudden, a little bit of tweaks to the traits like snipers and wardens kind of made her feel like you have to play her with Nautilus and you have to kind of play her with a 4 sniper, 4 warden. And I feel like we're gravitating towards that with Callista. We haven't even gotten to talking about Callista quote flex, but it's pretty much like the same 7 core units. And then your 8th unit kind of depends on whether or not you hit like the legendary. Do you feel like that's a fair comparison?
Yeah, I think that's actually extremely accurate. The thing is, like, you can argue that's not even like a bad thing because I don't know. I feel like the vast majority of people don't really approach the game like that, and that's why sites like ours are like super popular. People just want to see, load up, like play the exact board and do well with it. And then there's like definitely parts of that that's like fun. It's not something I personally prefer, but I don't know. There's probably some like internal data at Riot telling them that like they should make TFT more like this.
Well, don't worry. There is 1 or 2 comps like that still in the game, which we'll talk about. But just kind of centering back onto Fairy here, there is discussion about how if you have 2 Fairy emblems, you're obviously going to be chasing for 9 Fairy because that is an extremely powerful vertical. You should win the vast majority of your games. If you have 1 Fairy emblem, people are saying that 7 Fairy is bait and you'd rather stay on the 5 and use that as an opportunity to play an extra unit, whatever you want, an extra Preserver or Splash in, just a good quality unit. Where do you kind of sit on the 5 versus 7 Fairy when you have only 1 emblem?
Not gonna lie, I don't know if I was fully aware that this was like a debate. I always just kind of went in 7, but honestly, it does kind of make sense why you'd want to get out of it. Reason being is that 7, yes, it does give you the crown, yes, it does give you the extra stats, but you're playing like 2 really low impact units on your board to get there. And if you drop down to 5, you can play some really strong units. Basically, all the 5 costs can fit into the tree. You got like I don't know. I mean, you really can fit anything. Like even like Smolder pairs with Tristana, weirdly enough. But like
Yeah,
any extra preservers, the Camille,
Yeah.
like Xerath, Arcana, Hecarim, like all that stuff fits. So it does make sense if you want to like cap out your board. I can completely see it. With your second crown, you would probably be giving it to Rakan or Katarina. Or sorry, not Rakan. Milio or Katarina. And like Milio is good support, but I've never really felt like the Fairy Crown was that important on him. Which is extra damage for him. And then Katarina falls off a cliff like him if she's not 3-star. So I can completely see the 5 Fairy argument.
All right. So definitely a lot to consider with the Fairy trait. Let's move on to some of the other ones. Frost getting a little bit of a buff to some of its core units. You're talking about like the early game with Twitch being much more consistent. So it's smoothed out that part of the curve. Frost emblem still looking really good. Then they also changed Winter is coming with the trait. Instead of having a Frosty frontline with Eternal Winter, you have the Wolf. And then they B-patched it because it was like way too good. Where does Frost land now? It seems to be quite a popular trait for people to play, even if they don't have the Frost emblem at times.
I think it's strong. It's like you can play outside of the emblem because a lot of times the units you're playing in the comp are just like not very contested. Even like Nasus right now, Nasus used to be like insanely contested. Now I feel like you can just get them for free if you really want them. And definitely like it's a little harder to get Varus, but you can definitely get like Olaf kind of like you can get Olaf and Nasus for free, and that's probably if you get those upgraded early on the roll down, that's probably all you need to go 9. I think the comp has a lot of issues winning. Just doesn't really have a way to scale into the late game because a lot of the power is in 7 Frost, and you are just kind of playing a bunch of bad units. And Olaf is like melee, can easily be countered at the end of the game. But it's insanely consistent. If you're playing it from a spot where you're just ahead, you can just keep pushing the tempo, keep pushing the win streak. Getting the early 7 Frost and like 4-2 stabilize lets you go 9 if like a lot earlier than other comps. It's definitely very strong, but not something you probably want to play if you like need a top 2 for whatever reason. I'm just thinking like tournament wise, but
Sure.
I don't know. If you feel like if you like play ladder trying to win games, I don't know if I'd play Frost.
So I was talking to Solus, and Solus is one of Dishsoap's former practice partners for tournaments, and he was trying to play Frost as one of his core game plans in a lot of the tournament games, and talking about how Frost's early mid game is so much stronger, and he feels like it's much more reliable for those top 4s. And I think the interesting thing about these emblems that we're going to be talking about all throughout this podcast is you really want to be set up to capitalize onto it, because it feels like tailoring your board before the augment round is quite important to make sure that you can maximize your odds to get Portal Crest on 3-2 or Frost Crest on 3-2.
Yeah, it's insanely important. It's definitely worth getting weaker for a turn. if you like can't fit in the trait, if you feel like you have good direction for the trait, just to like put in like activating the 3 portal, the 3 frost, or whatever trait you need, just to give you like the chance at getting direction. I think it's like insanely important. Yeah.
And like taking out irrelevant traits that you feel like aren't important and you don't sacrifice that much. It feels like set 8 hero augments all over again, man. You have to tailor right before the augment round.
I mean, this has always like kind of been a thing. It's just you see people more doing it more when like all of the +1 lines get more powerful, and that's definitely the case right now.
Okay. Let's talk about Portal. It still looks really consistent. It does feel like very rigid because if you just kind of are stuck on the classic Rise 1, Taric 1, you're struggling. And they nerf Nora. So it feels like if you do spike that Nora, that Yumi on the Rise is no longer as insane as it used to be with all that free AP. So do you actually rate Portal highly? I feel like a lot of players actually aren't that high on it.
Oh, I don't know. I might just be like a. I don't know, I just like the comp. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not that excited to see Portal +1 on 2-1 or 4-2. I think it's so much better on 3-2, just because it gets you like the 6 portal kind of immediately most of the time, and then it gets you the spike from 3-2 all the way to 4-2, which is usually enough to like save like 40 HP, and that 40 HP is usually enough to go 9 and find like the Diana and stuff. If you get it on 2-1, you're probably not going to win streak stage 2 because you can't really get that much use out of 3 portal, or like getting an extra portal +1 on stage 2 because it's really easy to fit through portal regardless. And then on 4-2, you're probably not holding all of the portal like shitters, and they're all going to be 1-star, and you just load up to 4-2 with like your Jace 1, your Zoe 1, your Galio 1, your Cassidum 1, and like yeah, you got 8 portal, but it does scale off the star level, which is very, very relevant. So you're going to be weaker than you think. But on 3-2, if you can actually like take it, get the strong tempo, plan around it, that's like when it pops off for me.
Yeah, the one thing that's nice about it is that they have changed to Ezreal, so he's a little bit more reliable, and as a result, his early mid game is much more consistent. So don't be afraid to, if you had that portal opener, hold on to Ezreal, have him hold some items.
Yeah, Ezreal's just like a beast. I wouldn't be surprised if it's optimal just to like itemize him in portal normally.
Yeah, okay, so just like secondary carry.
Yeah, the thing is, it's hard. It's just hard to fit in Blaster. Like you can play Rumble on your board with Portal Spat on 8 and it fits, but then like you're playing a Rumble on your board, and like late game you probably want to get in Mage, then you probably want to get in Diana, and it's just there's no room for Blaster. So it just doesn't really, to me at least, it doesn't really make sense to invest items in him when I know late in the game I won't be able to like remove or 80 items onto anyone in my comp, and I won't be able to get Blaster in. So it's just like a little weird thing for me.
Right. And you kind of struggle with the same thing as his counterpart Hui and Frost, which is like you're not trying to stay on 7 to roll for Ezreal 3 for Portal. You'd rather do that with 6 blasters, which we'll talk about in a sec here. So yeah, he kind of has this interesting identity crisis within Portal. Is he actually worth itemizing, or is he just literally taking any leftover 80 items just because you just get too many swords?
Yeah, a cool thing that sometimes come up is with Trait Tracker. It recently got buffed to give an extra emblem. It's the augment you see on 3-2, 6 random emblems if you fit 7 traits in. It's kind of incredible in the Portal comp because one, it's just easy to proc the effect of 7 traits in the Portal shell. Like Zoe, Ezreal, Galio, Bard, Rumble, Witchcraft, and then I think there's some other unit you play or something. I think that's 7, and there's like a few boards like that. So if you just play that board, the traits are tailored, I believe. It'll show.
Yeah, there's a rumor that
It's not.
But like I think Asa was telling me that it's not anymore for this patch.
Oh really? It got fixed. Oh,
I'm not entirely sure. So, but let's just throw it out there anyway, just in case we might get more information.
Okay, I don't know. I just know someone looked at literally 50 games of it, and they did not see a single game where it was not tailored. And I mean tailored as in active plus inactive traits. It would give you 3 emblems of your active and inactive traits. Apparently that might not be the case anymore, so don't quote me on this. But it was like kind of confirmed before.
We need help. We need your help. Please click Trait Tracker more often and let us know if you feel like you've been getting 3+ traits. I mean, part of it could also just be, the variance of like there's only so many emblems and you have so many traits active. But yeah, it is interesting.
I mean, like irregardless, if you're playing the Portal or the Rise line, like Trait Tracker is incredible because you can get Blaster, you can get Arcana, you can get Scholar, you can get Vanguard, you can get Bastion, you can get Portal, you can get like sometimes even like Preserver, and sometimes even like Frost. You can play like Diana with Zillion Preserver. I mean, I'm like missing stuff for sure as well, but there's just so many traits you can play in that line, and you can proc it super easily, like with the opener already. I feel like it's like kind of one of the best augments you can see when you're playing that tree.
That is good tech. That is good tech. So keep that in mind. Trait tracker when you're trying to play along Portal. All right. So in S tier, we noticed that there are actually a lot of hero augments no longer here. In fact, they're at the very bottom. But there is one that stays around, that Zap Attack Blitzcrank, largely due to two things. One, Blitzcrank 3 has been pretty OP for a while, actually, and they just haven't nerfed them. And then second is that they reworked Honeymancy. So talk to me about the Zap Attack. Which variation do you like playing the most with Blitz?
I mean, to be honest, this is not really something I have that much expertise with, but I see other people play it, and the most common board I see other people playing with the augment is just like the 5 Honeymancy reroll, ideally with the Ziggs as your carry. Ziggs got buffed like a couple patches ago, along with the Honeymancy buffs this patch. He's been kind of a menace, sniping the backline. You get your blue buff on him. He does have the same mana as Veigar, so the blue buff Trojan build that used to pop off on Veigar pops off on Ziggs now as well. You can get your 2 auto casts instead of 3. But yeah, just give him AP, give him blue buff. He'll kill the backline. Like after he kills the backline, he'll like proc Honeymancy on your frontline and then pop your frontline. It's good, very good. And then that's like you don't even need the Blitz Hero augment, and then you just have the Blitz Hero augment, and now you just have like 2 Giga carries.
That's pretty much what A tier is. Not to jump too
Yeah.
far ahead, but A tier is pretty much like what happens if you don't hit like the augment, the emblem, and it's like those A tier comps can still do extremely well.
Mhm.
It's actually become very difficult to make this tier list because it feels like there's so many like conditional if then flowchart
Yeah.
decisions.
Right now, our S tier really composes of the stuff that gets enabled by particular augments and emblems, as that's really just the stuff that's going to be doing the best in each games and winning the most games. But a lot of the stuff in A tier is the more unconditional stuff that you can play more reliably. So even though they're like in A tier, there might see like a lot more play than the S tier comps, just because it's like easier to play them. So that's like kind of interesting, I guess.
Yeah. And the Ziggs comp that you mentioned, the Ziggs reroll, is actually starting to innovate as well. There's a post in China that's starting to go viral where you're playing around Cassiopeia and Poppy and dropping 5 honey down to 3 because 3 honey is where most of the power budget is. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like 5 honey doesn't add that much. Plus, you're playing like Veigar with no items, with no traits. And Kog'Maw's actually pretty decent utility, but it kind of falls off as well. And so you see some interesting variations right now with Cassio and Poppy. And then the upside is that Cassio is much stronger now in the early mid game. In fact, she might be one of the best 2-cost item holders, just period. So if you ever
Mhm.
have an opportunity to play around it, maybe that could be a way to link some of that early mid game that people are like, oh, I have no opener. What do I do? Maybe Cassio can end up being that holder. So just keep your eye on it. Maybe that Witchcraft Encanter Splash could be really big for the honey comp.
The board makes sense because you get Bastion for Nunu and then Witchcraft plus Encanter with the Cassidon and the Poppy. To me, it looked a little weird because you weren't playing Vanguard, but I guess it's just fine. Like Ziggs is good enough not to need Vanguard on level 5 at least, and you can get it later. Ideally with like Arcana, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Fundamentally, it looks kind of weird that we're like trying to make Blitzcrank our primary tank. We're not activating Vanguard, which should be a very important trait for him.
Mhm.
I think it's partially because of how broken Blitzcrank is,
Yeah.
but we'll see. Maybe that ends up evolving as time goes on.
Yeah, I think Blitz might be a nerf target. Not gonna lie, he's been a. I mean, I wouldn't even say he's like silently been OP. He's kind of just been like loudly OP the whole set for a 1-cost tank. That is what it is. I guess he doesn't do damage normally, so that's where he's supposedly balanced. Copium.
All right, let's talk briefly about some of these other verticals. How about the new one, Chrono? Chrono Karma. Chrono got reworked a little bit, so now instead of procking its big heal, like part of the reward for 6 Chronos, you get a full heal, almost like a second life. But it happened towards the end of the time freeze. They moved it up to the beginning, so that way it stays alive more consistently. And now the stats behind Chrono are good. They also, I think, changed a little bit about some of the other parts about it. Like you don't get as much attack speed, you get more AP. So talk to me about Chrono. The Chrono +1 stats look pretty good as well. How do you like this trait?
It's really only something I'm interested in with the emblem. I think the like standard 4 Chrono Karma board is just a little too weak. But if you get that emblem, you get the Callista, or sorry, you get the Camille, you get the 6 Chrono setup, and then you get the emblem on someone like a Morgana or like a Gwen 2, for example, that can use the AP really well. It got buffed a lot because the units that want the emblem want AP way more than they want attack speed. Same with like Vex, same with Karma. Um, just the shift towards more AP helps the comp with damage a lot, and then also just like the more consistent healing is just a lot more frontline. The comp just got buffed a lot, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Also, last patch, there was just like a bug where sometimes I don't even know what the cause was. Sometimes it just wouldn't heal, or it wouldn't, like, it would always heal, but sometimes it would do like the 2 chrono heal when you had 6 chrono, and I don't know what caused it. I said like a bunch of clips of it to riots, but I think that's fixed now. Hopefully,
Yeah, it is. I've yet to see it
yeah.
not proc, but yeah, I've heard about that. 6 chrono was not working half the time, basically, last patch. This patch, it looks like it's good to go, and it's very good. It's pretty much tied to the 5 cost, which you'll actually kind of notice a lot of these verticals very much are. Like, you kind of need to hit Morgana with Witchcraft. You obviously really want to hit the 5 cost for Portal as well as Frost, and Chrono is no different, basically.
Mhm.
But I will say also that when you get Camille 2 with 6 chrono and you have items on her, she just goes crazy. Your frontline tank won't survive very long. And if she gets to the back line, heaven be with you, because that's going to be very quickly eliminated. Let's take a little bit of a break from the 4 cost, 5 cost shenanigans. Let's talk about Ezreal and Hecarim as 3 cost carries. These guys are terrorizing ladder. Which one is your favorite out of the 2 of them? Ezreal 6 blasters or the horsing around Hecarim crazy unleash the beast combos?
I like Ezra more. I just think he's kind of cool. Um, Remains to be seen what's stronger. There's certainly setups in either comp that are insane. I would probably say Hecarim's a little more consistent though, because I think Ezreal kind of just needs, like, he needs like dual carries and he needs a lots of econ. Whereas it seems like Hecarim 2 with the right setup can be stable for a little bit longer. But late game, Ezreal has like a lot of really, really good and surprising matchups just from the sheer amount of damage you can put out compared to other comps. You can just like one shot basically any unit of the game at 3-star, and that's definitely huge. Although I do think Ezreal, he needs a lot of econ because you really want to go for 3-stars, and 3-star 3 cost is one of the most expensive things you can do. Or you need like a lot of HP to stall. And then you also need a bunch of like items. So you need like an econ augment and an item augment. And
Yeah.
then somehow you need to not be like too behind on combat as well. So you probably need to start off with econ into like a really good item augment and then finish with combat. But it really kind of has to be a perfect storm a lot of the time because you really want the way through with items. You even kind of want Varus with items. You want like the Mord through with items. But if you get that perfect storm, he'll just obliterate everything. And it's extremely satisfying.
And you also want a blaster emblem too, by the way, because 6
Oh, yeah.
blaster is very good. And 4 blaster can do well. We've seen people do 4 blaster setups perfectly fine with 4 Vanguard and land like top 2 when you get everything online. But 6 blasters where the real juice gets online. But then also you kind of run into the dynamic of like, well, okay, you need items, you need econ, you need to hit like pretty fast. You also want 6 blaster, but you kind of want smolder as opposed to like Tristana. So it's like you're just having so many things. But if the stars align, this composition looks broken. But if you're kind of like missing a couple of the components, it can flame out miserably in bot form. There's also another variation that is popping up, which people are experimenting around. Is that like if you're not hitting, like, because hitting more 3 and Hwei 3 is so expensive, there's been cheaper variations as you play around like Varus 2 as your duo instead of Hwei 3, and then try to play around like Shen and Hecarim to kind of make it a little bit easier and just focus more on the burst aspect of it. So definitely worth thinking about. I don't think we have the 100% optimal version of Ezreal yet, so we'll go ahead and keep you guys updated as we find out.
Yeah, I can see it because a lot of times I felt like I've been forced to go level 8 with a comp and player on Varus Duo, but I've always kept the 4 Vanguard, and it's always felt a little awkward to me. So I can see dropping out of 4 Vanguard and fitting in some more utility.
Yeah, and they did buff Varus in the B patch, and I think that's kind of where a lot of people's heads are for the innovated part of the meta. Like a lot of people want to see what Varus can do, so we'll talk about Varus later in this second half of the meta report. The last thing I do want to say is that this Hecarim 3 is really good, but Hecarim is a top 3 contested unit in the game. In my lobbies, it actually is the most contested unit in the game, especially in the mid parts, like stage 3. So part of what's holding it back is that its win rate's insane, but you're just never really going to hit Hecarim 3 reliably unless you have like a bunch of duplicators. Like Heroic Grab Bag ends up being really good in the stats, and that tells you everything you need to know about how often you're going to hit Hecarim. Okay, let's go into some of the A tier, and we could be honestly talking about for hours about like this setup. So let's just pick some of our favorites and start shouting them out. Let's start off with talking about Rise and Karma, and there's actually like discussion about whether or not Karma is the nuts. She's overrated. I don't know why, but somehow I end up in 5-6 way Karma contests and lobbies. No one wants to play Rise, but then people are like, wait, Rise is actually really good. And people are like, no, Arcana Rise is like fraudulent. You got to play Preserver Rise, but if you're playing Preserver Rise, you're in the Recon lottery. So just like walk me through it, man. This 4-cost AP mess is just, it just seems like everyone's contesting and fumbling over each other all the time.
Okay, I am Team Rise. Hashtag Team Rise.
Yeah.
I feel like he is so good. I think the 4 Scholar buffs kind of made him insane. I mean, honestly, I'll just quickly drop the Rise Bible real quick. What you want to do with Rise is you always want to play 4 Scholar. I mean, we can update the site later because I mean, I don't know. Because the thing is, the Arcana Rise, like I don't even consider Arcana Rise, Preserver Rise different comps because in my mind they're the same. You roll for like kind of the same stuff. You either play Rakan as your tank or you play Kench as your tank. But you can fit 4 Scholar in either version. So you always want to play Rise, you always want to play Zoe, and then you always want to play Emilio. And then you either go into Bard plus Preservers or you go into Ari plus Arcana. I think Preservers usually cap higher, but if you hit if you hit a Kench 2 on your 4-2, you hit a Kench 2 on your 4-2. And then you can buy stuff like Galio pair with a Kench, you can buy, and then you always buy Taric as well, because Taric gets your like 3 portal and then fits with Diana with the Preservers, and it fits with Hecarim with the Arcana. And then the Arcana version, you're capping around Galio. You put Galio for your Kench. You play Ari, and then you level for like Xerath. You get that set up. And then Preservers, you play like the Morgana. You can play the Zilean on 9. You can play the Bard. And then it all kind of like meshes together, and you're rolling for like both boards at the same time, so you can't even miss. The only thing you can miss is Rise, but that's fine. Like if you miss Rise 2, you'll for sure hit a Milio. There's no way you miss both. And then I don't know. I feel like the comp is just like kind of insanely consistent, but the caveat is that if Rise the unit becomes more popular, that's not really the case because you do kind of need the Rise 2 eventually.
Right. So you're not duo carrying necessarily. It seems solo Rise is good enough then.
I mean, you can duo carry Diana, you can duo carry Bard, you can duo carry the Milio, you can duo carry like sometimes the Morgana. I think I said Diana.
You did,
Diana,
but these are 5 costs.
No, you can
not
put,
all
no,
of us
you,
are world champ caliber.
Okay, you can put trust. You can put items on Bard 2, and it's not even that bad.
Okay.
After the Bard buffs, it's actually fine. Like he'll do probably around half the damage of Rise, but like that's pretty good. I don't know.
That is true. You are a Bard believer. I do see you play Bard a lot.
I think he's underrated as an item holder. I thought he was underrated as an item holder like last patch, because I was like watching people and was like, I mean, why not play this Bard here? Like people just are afraid of buying him because he's seen as a support unit. But especially this patch with like the remover changes, you shouldn't be afraid to itemize them because like if you need Bard in your comp later, you can just remover. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a really big fan of Rise. Mostly because I think it's a little too uncontested, and I think the frontline, like you can hit Rakan 2, you can hit Taric 2, you can hit Kench 2. It just feels kind of hard to miss on that, which is a really big upside for me. But I'm a big fan.
I agree. I think Rise is underrated. I get torched in chat whenever I play around Rise. They're just like, Rise is horrible. Why are you buying Rise? And it's just it's because I'm on Rise 1 and I don't hit those 5 costs, by the way. And so everyone's just making fun of me. And I'm like, no, guys, I promise you, Rise is not bad. Also, we did mention this in our meta read for our Patreon, which we talked about Bard being potentially underrated as like sleeper tech. We haven't put this on the tier list because I don't think anyone's been able to replicate it, but apparently Bard can primary carry, and Dishsoap has had success in the past doing it. But I just don't see many people trying Bard primary because they did buff Bard and they did buff the preserver emblems, or the preserver traits rather. So is Bard carry for real, Dishsoap?
Yes, he's for real. And I'm gonna make a prediction. As soon as they buff Wukong, Bard is actually going to be a comp. The only issue with this guy is that there's no frontline that makes sense at all to like reroll with it. Like I don't know. When I played it, I rerolled like Rumble with like Kench. But the thing is, I had The thing is, I had Pandora, so I could on level 7, I could guarantee certain 5 costs, and I can guarantee Recon 2 and Kench 2 on level 7. But that's only because I had Pandoras and I was win streaking and had a bunch of money. That's not exactly normal. Like if you're ever actually looking to play, like a 3 cost you could reroll with it. Like it's like maybe Mord, but then Mord's kind of contested by the Blasters players, and it doesn't really make sense to play Mord because you want to get Arcana with Kench anyways for the Ari and the Scholar and the AP from the Ari. So it doesn't really make any sense. But I'm telling you, as soon as they buff Wukong, all of the comp's problems gets fixed because you can just have Wukong as your frontline and it just fixes everything. But right now, Wukong kind of sucks, so you can't play Bard consistently.
Wukong. What have
But
they
the
done?
thing
If you
is-
want to play Wukong, download Black Myth because I'm pretty sure you're just not playing Wukong this patch.
But I don't know if you're ever in a spot where where like you just hit where you have like 5 bards and then you load up into wolves and your wolves shop is 3 Rakans. I'm pretty sure you could reroll bard
Okay.
if you just have if you just have Rakan 2 on 7.
The most
I mean-
contested unit in the game. Yeah.
I mean the only issue is that you just don't. There's no frontline that makes any sense.
It's true.
You just
it's
need
true.
Wukong and Wukong sucks. So I don't know. I think the unit like Bard himself is legit though.
Sure.
He
Fair
does-
enough. Fair
he
enough.
does damage.
Okay, then you dropped the Rise Bible. Thank you for that. Let's talk about the other half of that, which is Karma. And a lot of people are saying not only is Karma inconsistent, it feels like, obviously her core around Preservers is really contested. And also, people seem to be kind of lower on Fiora and particularly Gwen. Like, what happened to Gwen this patch? Is she as bad as her AI is making it look to be? Because I look at these fights, it looks like Gwen's terrible. Is she actually okay and just visually is bad, or is she actually kind of poor?
I think she's weaker than previous patches for sure. The AI changes made her like she'll pretty much never hit more than 1 unit, which takes down her DPS a lot. On the flip side, she's a lot safer. She won't really run in and die, but the thing is, like, is it really worth it if you're keeping your Gwen alive if she's really only going to single target? The only real success I've seen from her is like with her having like super stall builds, as in like, I don't know, like Archangel BT Spark, and she just lives it till the end of the fight and 1v9s everything. I actually had a game with like Archangel Portal or Archangel Cronus Bet BT. I believe I don't even think it was 6 chrono. I think it was 4 chrono because I missed Camille. It was just 4 chrono, and that Gwen was beating some boards that were way stronger than it. But I mean, I still went 6th. But yeah, whatever. But the Gwen was not the issue. So I think maybe, but the problem is you can't really invest an Archangel into the Gwen because like if you're playing Karma, you really want the Tears and Rods on the Karma. So there's a little bit of issue with that. That's actually a big issue.
That's a pretty significant issue, yeah.
I personally have not really found the success with Karma because I feel when I'm playing Karma, the Fiora Gwen portion of it, like the advantage of playing Karma over Rise is that you get to utilize Fiora Gwen a little bit more because Karma doesn't really rely on having like the 4 scholars, so you can fill the slots with like other units like Fiora Gwen. But the thing is, if you're ever trying to top 2 a game anyways, Fiora Gwen are just going to fall off because they don't really deal with multiple targets well. Like when you get to the late game in level 9 and 2-star 5 cost, those units have a hard time keeping up. So if you're trying to cap out a Karma board anyways, you're going to be looking to drop those for your like Diana, your Morgana, your Briar, your Humilio, like all that stuff. And I feel like if you're just doing that, like you might as well just play Rise, which can play all that stuff anyways, and you're just having a more consistent carry. That's kind of where I stand on the debate, but I know a lot of people stand by Karma. She's definitely super contested on ladder.
Yeah, stop, guys, please. She's not that good. All 6 of us can't top 4. I'm just saying. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know why? It's because people have the idea that Karma can be good if you hit everything, right? Everyone knows if you snap your finger and you get the 2-star Karma, the Warriors Online, the Morgana, the Briar, like the board does very well. Mm-hmm. And then they also look at their items and they say, oh, I have like some 80 items like Bloodthirster, and I have some backline items like Morello. And it's like, okay, what can I really do? Oh, Karma can like hold all this. And so they just like lean into it because they're like, oh, I play Fiora Karma, and then I'll just like throw whatever on Gwen. That's always how it happens. They corner themselves into thinking that they need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like literally everyone has done that this set. Because it does kind of make sense. But at the end of the day, you just play Rise, and then there's no way you're going to miss Morgana 1 or Diana 1. Agreed?
Yeah,
like
true.
You actually you can't miss.
If you put on the crown before you roll down, I think you hit every time.
Agree.
Just saying. Fun little fact, by the way. I was very curious about your discussion about Gwen, and you mentioned how it seems like she's kind of like a stall scaling comp. When you get things like Talisman of Ascension, I'm guessing through like What the Forge or something crazy like that, it ends up performing extremely well on Gwen in particular. So, kind of going back to what you're saying, she kind of becomes this inevitability champion if you can find a way to stack her. So, interesting food
Yeah,
for thought.
it's strange. She's like a stall melee champion that has a little bit of range. It's very weird.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
really remember a unit in the past that's operated like the current version of Gwen.
I mean, she visually looks like it too, because she's always looking like she's like
Mhm.
standing as far away as possible. She's like Marth from Smash Bros. She tries to tip her everything. I don't get it. It's so funny. Let's briefly just pick one other comp to talk about in A2 here, and then a couple of things else in the meta that we want to highlight as well. So, what about Cassio as a whole? People have been re-rolling her more with shapeshifters, and then having her either duo with Syndra or playing just like Karma if you can't hit the Syndra. How do we feel about that comp?
I played it a couple times. I think I went like second, fifth, or something with it. I don't know. I think it's okay. It's just I don't know. For me, that's like not really the kind of comps I vibe with. Like I'm not saying it's bad. I just have like a personal dislike for comps like that. I never really like Bard from last set either, the double Ginsu Bard, because usually a lot of the time it felt like I couldn't really progress my game state that much. Like I was just stuck on having like I felt like I had as much DPS on like stage 4 as I had for the rest of the game. It felt like it was kind of hard to cap out the board. Like you can level for more shapes, but are you really making it to Briar 2 with 3 items when you're spend all that gold like
No,
rolling?
you're rolling too long on 6 and 7.
Like yeah, you can't. It feels like it just caps like insanely low. The things I've seen it do well with the most are just when they could just completely snowball the early mid game, especially the mid game, with stuff like too tanky. Because I mean, you can just drop down to like 2 shapeshifter and play double Nico, double Swain, and it's more frontline than just playing 4 shapeshifter. So that's kind of neat. Other than that, though, like it's a good comp. You can beat some like if you get a strong tempo and in a relatively weak lobby, you can for sure like top 3, top 2. I don't know. It's just not the kind of comp I like, pretty much.
I call it the new Kog'Maw. It's like a new 2-cost reroll that plays pretty much the same units every single time, and you just farm like a very guaranteed fourth. And you have to be happy about that, because
Mhm.
you're just not going to beat the verticals. You're not going to beat like the cash outs. You're not going to beat like the high tempo Karma Rise players. So it's just like, yeah, but you have like 40 HP gap to fifth place, so you're
Mhm.
going to be like totally fine. But you're just kind of wait. You could probably FF a lot of Casio games, honestly, once you get top 4, because
Yep.
it feels like you're just guaranteed that way.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not really in the design of the unit, but like if like Loki, if she scaled like Ash and she like hit multiple targets, like when she ramped up and did like less damage, that could maybe be something. I don't know. Or maybe like a hero augment where it like splits damage or like does his 2 targets. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming because I feel like late game when you're going against level 9 units and the fights are faster, like how is she supposed to kill anything? I don't understand.
Why not talk about multi-strikers Ash then? Ash got reworked, and now she scales in fight by shooting more arrows the more she casts. They raise her mana. They said they want to make her like less Rage Blade dependent, or rather specifically, they want to open up more itemization on her. I feel like nothing has really changed.
Oh no, she plays exactly the same. I think she's just I believe she's like slightly weaker because it takes her longer to ramp up.
They also nerfed Jax, so
Oh,
it's a
okay.
little bit weaker. But then they also buffed Hecarim, so there's like anchors in the mid game where, funny enough, I've seen people just like put Jax items onto Hecarim, like the crown card stuff like that, until they hit Jax 3, and then they kind of move back, because you get so many free item removers. That's something we haven't also talked about the patch, which is you can just slam your items a lot more aggressively and then remove later, knowing that you'll get a remover at the end of each stage.
But that being said, she can still do well, like for sure. If you get like the good augments, like 7 multi striker plus 1 multi striker, you get the
Category
Renan's
5.
augment. Yeah, yeah, category 5. Trying to think of other stuff. I don't really play the comp, but there's probably some other stuff. I personally have won a game with it this patch, but it was some some highway robbery, some scams.
I do think the cap is surprisingly really high, because
Mhm.
in the late game scenarios, if you're able to tempo hard enough and survive, you can actually find a way to get Hecarim 3 and Camille 2 because just enough people die, right? Like, not everyone's
Yep.
going to be in the last 3 players holding Hecarims. And so I've seen Ashe players capitalize on tempo and then out survive people and then like hold the door open in case they want to itemize. And all of a sudden you roll up with Ashe 3, Jax 3, Hecarim 3, Camille 2. And that's actually surprisingly good enough to just win those lobbies.
Yep.
You got to be careful about it. Also, important to note is that a pro tip from the rank 1 player, you might see him as Force and Smurf account. He actually has said that silver lobbies ends up being silver starts rather at 2-1, end up favoring things like Ashe because there's just a lot of good silvers that end up giving you either econ or like those delayed support items or stationary support that helps like the comp do very well. And so that's been a key success to his rank 1 climb that I think a lot of people are not really thinking about because silvers, you don't really know what to do really often.
Well, silver's always benefit reroll comps. Just because you're playing at a lower cap environment. But, like most of the time, prismatics are quite bad for reroll. There's like definitely some exceptions because like sometimes you get too much synergy out of prismatic to ignore. But like generally, if you're playing a reroll comp and you want to do well, you want the lobby to be as weak as possible. So I don't really know if silvers have that much synergy with Ashe, or if you're just weakening the rest of the lobby, getting rid of everyone's like +1s and stuff, and then that's what you're getting your advantage from.
Yep, that's fair. That's fair. Either way, just food for thought because that's something that I hadn't heard very much from people talking about it. Let's talk about Varus. Varus is like the king of B tier here, which is just like not many people are willing to make him as the primary game plan, but if they do want to make him as a secondary, either as a duo carry for another person, we mentioned Ezreal, or just finding a way to be played in with Olaf and Frost. But now it feels like if you try to make Varus sort of the core of your game plan, he is better than I think he was before. But is he still? Is it good enough? Is the question, I guess. What do you think about Varus right now?
He himself is never gonna truly like impress you. Like you're never gonna have a Varus game when you're never gonna have a good Varus game and be like, yeah, I did well this game because of Varus. You probably did well this game because you had like 7 Frost, you had 6 Blaster Ezreal, you had Pyrus Bat Smolder 2. That's the stuff you really like need to succeed with him. But that being said, he does provide value as a secondary carry in a lot of comps. He's the secondary carry in Frost very often in the Ezreal comp we talked about. In like if you have like Pyrus Bat Smolder, he's often the secondary carry to that as well. And then there's also, I believe, like an Arcana Varus build going around where you play the Gwen Fiora. And I mean, I'd say he's more of a primary carry in that one, but you're still playing like a lot of carries in that comp. For example, you're playing like Gwen Fiora and Xerath equivalent items. So he's doing a lot of work with other carries. He's just not like the star of the show, I'd say, in like any of his lines.
So he's Scottie Pippen. He can't really be the focus, but you kind of need him on the team. Like when your team wants Varus, that he's really important because the utility that he can do with the executes, the way he can spread like anti heal. I mean, like there's a lot of different things that Varus actually brings to the table. Except he's not putting in the 50-point performance that you kind of need if you need to primary him.
Well, the main issue with him as a primary is that he just doesn't have the consistent DPS. I'm trying to think of like carries the set, and they all kind of just have consistent DPS. Like the main ones,
Yep.
at least. You got your Callista that does, the Karma that does, the Rise that does. Varus is just a lot of burst inconsistently, or I wouldn't say inconsistently, but just I guess not. I guess inconsistently is fine. Like just not that
It is
often.
inconsistent
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he sometimes still gets grief by
Mm.
the targeting where he ults like one unit and there's like a pocket of units behind them that you needed to ult.
Yeah.
This is in contrast to last set, Kaisa, the trick shot would always bounce to another target. So I feel like that DPS loss wasn't really a thing. But Varus can sometimes deal 6,000 damage and then sometimes he can deal like 1.5 thousand, depending on like who he aims at. And that's, I think, where a source of a lot of frustration is.
Yeah, so especially for finishing units off and like dealing with stragglers on like the sides of the field, you really need your team to be putting in the work. And then you really just want Varus to blow up the clump and just hope everything else gets finished off. One note though is apparently Varus 3 is just the god of TFT. I saw a clip on
Really?
I saw a clip on Twitter. I kid you not. This Varus 3 guy beats I think every single 3-star 5 cost. He had
Ha!
he had Hodge.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
he had Hodge, IE, Silvermare. So and then he just got mana, so it didn't even matter. He had Silvermare just for like the stats. And it just blew up it just beat every single 3-star 5 class. It was crazy. And the 3-star 5 class had items, I think, as well, which is the crazy thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Varus 3
just,
with Silvermere Dawn.
yeah,
This is some TikTok content.
No. You hit Varus 3, you get a healing item on him, and you just solo frontline him. And I'm pretty sure the rest of your board can be shit as long as you have like a few blasters and pyro. I think you're just gonna kill everything. It looked insane.
So you're telling me if I get major polymorph with Varus 3, I'm not clicking that.
Oh no. You probably do for sure, because like the only other thing you could lose to is a Varus 3, and you already got rid of that possibility.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might as well, because you denied the only possible way that people can beat you. Gotcha.
True.
Okay. All right. The last thing I want to talk about in this, because again, we could probably actually do 2 episodes of the whole meta, but I want to ask about the Ahri rework. Ahri got changed, so no longer doing like the Orb of True Damage, instead doing kind of a Firefox scaling, similar to Syndra in the previous patch, or the previous set. The faded butterflies, where every time she casts, she toss another one out. Is Ahri viable? And if so, what are you playing with her?
I want to say probably not. Her best version right now is probably Vanguard, if I want to say, because you really just need the stall. But then again, Vanguard got nerfed a couple patches ago, so it's not as good as it's stalling as it used to be at the start of the set. But she really is like a stall champ and not really a burst champ now. There's not really that like solo frontline Lilia to like stall for 5 seconds, and 5 seconds is enough to kill everything.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to like stall at the fights. Right now, I think she's probably just a little undertuned, but that's probably just something they can buff. I think a lot of stuff that used to be kind of meta, especially for reroll, just kind of doesn't exist anymore. Like we have the Ahri of the Jinx, for example, and the Wukong. I think Veigar Mages got quite a bit weaker. I'm trying to think what else. Like all the hero augments, yeah. That used to be like the stuff that dominates the meta, and now it's just kind of not that good.
It's kind of it's very sad to see Spider Queen Elise go from literally the number 1 ranked comp on our tier list to the very last in one fell swoop. It's brutal, and they even buffed her on the B patch.
Yeah, it sucks for me. I got the Spider Queen seed. I actually looked at my stats. I kid you not, it's in my top 10 augments pick this set, like number of games, like total. I think I had 8 games of Spider Queen Elise.
I remember you posted a rank 1 screenshot, and then you went like 7-8, and then like 1-1-1-1-1-1, like 6 or 7 games in a row. And I was like, oh my god, Dishsoap is back. The king has returned. Let me go ahead and look at his profile. And I'm looking, there's like 3 Spider Queen games in a row or something like that. I'm like, I don't even know how that even happened.
I don't know. I just got the Elise seed.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, well played, I guess.
Yeah, I need them to buff it again. We can't be seeing that all right now.
You can't win worlds if Spider Queen is at 5.0, man. You're gonna get it every game.
Sure.
All right, so that wraps up this portion of the meta discussion. Again, there's so much to break down, and I think the next episode we'll try to talk about some of the other comps, and especially if there's going to be buffs to them. The only thing I want to note as well is that Smolder itemization is also changing a little bit, so keep an eye out for that because they did rework him. Let's go ahead and move on to fact or fraud and throw out some observations that I made about the meta. And ask Dishsoap, is that factual or is that fraudulent? So the first one is, despite getting yet another emblem added to it and now gives you 6 instead of 5, Trait Tracker is now performing worse than last patch, which is mind-blowing to me. And I thought it was a skill issue, but as I sort for higher ranks like GM+, it's still the case. It's now doing 3/10 worse, 4.6 to almost 4.9. Is that fact or fraud?
I mean, it's factual as in you're correct. It is performing worse, but I don't know. My take is it's a skill issue. And the thing is, like, you might say that, like, oh, you look at the highest like bracket of stats in the game, GM+, and think that, like, oh, they're still performing worse, so that it might not be a skill issue. But I still think it is. And I'll say that, like, I'm not even like trying to flame GM players because I mess it up all the time. If you ever watch my stream, I think like I average 1 or 2 like disaster class Trait Trackers a game. But once I cash out, it's just easy. But I feel like the community just has to take time to memorize the Trait Tracker boards on level 7. And if you could easily do that, the augment is just broken. The only issue right now is that you just get dizzy trying to cash it out. At least for me. But once I cash out, I feel like it's the most broken augment in the game. I think I've gone first like 3 or 4 times with it recently, especially in like the rise lines. That's usually what I play with it. I think it's incredible, but it's a very hard thing to execute, and it just might not be. And I think the player base needs more time for it, but I also just think it's just really hard, and people might just not get it, like ever. I think it's really
I've
hard.
never seen an augment that is such a big disparity between the actual performance, a true AVP of Trade Tracker when played well versus the average player, and it still is the case at even high elo. So definitely one of the more interesting augments they've ever made, I think, for TFT.
Yeah, I don't care. Like the current augment can average like a 6. I'm still taking it in the spot, you know.
Which it kind of is close to doing soon enough. It's like a 5.2 or something like that.
Yeah, whatever. 5.2 if it's broken.
Yeah, it's broken.
I mean, I'm taking it. Like, you can't stop me.
All right, number 2. Despite the stats saying otherwise, 9 Fairy is better than 10 Portal. This is because people have been sending nonstop clips of 10 Portal losing to things like 9 Fairy. Is that fact or fraud?
I feel like that just depends on your board. Like, I don't know. I feel like you can't just see 9 Fairy beats 10 Portal without any other context and say, oh, 9 Fairy is better than 10 Portal. You got to consider the other context. Like, is your team more itemized? Do they have better augments? Blah, 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 blah. They did nerf 10 Portal recently. So the gap, like, for sure got decreased. Probably to the point where if you have a good 9 Fairy board, you can probably beat it. Yeah, I don't know. I actually remember previous patch, I was playing Fortune and I got the cash out that gave you +1 to all your traits. And then I ended up in some 9 Fairy board with like 5 Arcana or something crazy. And then there's a 10 Portal player in that lobby, and I beat him 3 fights, but eventually he just got to the point where he had enough 5 costs and upgrades to beat me. And I lost the last fight and I was 1 life, so it was over. So right now it's probably just like, if the 10 Portal board is weak, as in like it probably is weaker because you had to spend all your money to go 10 instead of upgrading 5 costs versus like a 9 Fairy board with upgraded 5 costs, I can for sure see it losing. But
that
I wouldn't say
case,
it's better,
in my opinion. I think people have gotten used to the fact that 10 Portal was auto win, and they just assumed get to 10 Portal, nothing else matters. But they're playing 1-star everything and like a 2-star Cassidon, and like, yeah, I mean your unit just died too fast. Like, who cares? And you don't have nearly like the crazy power that it did in the previous patch. So I do see 10 Portal losing way more often now.
I will say 10 Portal fights have the like crazy variance.
Yes. What if you get the right Portal summons, it could be easy, and then if you get the wrong ones, it could be devastating.
The biggest one is Radiance. Like, if you roll Radiance as like your first 3 Portal spawns, I don't think you're losing a single fight. But if you never roll Radiance, like Loki, your trait's not even that good.
Yeah, like Flag. If you just keep getting the flag.
Yeah, if you just get like Flag and then you bomb like if they're spread out, you bomb nothing. You summon 1 Krug, you get a Flag again. Like, are you really winning that fight? You need the Radiance.
Next one. Now that Yuumi has been nerfed significantly, Nora is the weakest legendary alongside Smolder. And if you do play Nora, you should mainly use Yuumi on front line instead of back line. Is that fact or fraud?
I don't know about the frontline stuff. That might be true. That's just like a stuff I would have to see in game. I could for sure believe it, but I do think she's gotten significantly weaker. Because I mean, really, the only spots where she'd see play was like the mage line usually, and then that line kind of got nerfed with like the overall Veigar nerfs. And then in the Arcana Rise stuff, but with like the 4 Scholar buff with the Milio buff, that part of the tree is looking more appealing than the mage stuff, so you just don't really want to play her that much. She still see plays obviously in 8 Portal, but I mean that's just kind of obvious. I guess you might not want to put it on Rise, then maybe you put on like your Diana 8 Portal cap. I'm not sure, but definitely.
So this is fact in your mind.
Yeah. They did buff Nora's damage like a little bit, but Nora was never the greatest carry, and this change doesn't really change anything about that.
I agree. I had a game where it was Ghost Description. I took birthday present. I'm like, oh, I'm about to dish soap this, like world champion birthday present. And then I got back-to-back Noras on 9 and 10, and I didn't kill anything. Yeah. It was pretty bad. I was really sad about it.
Yeah, I think birthday present's a little bit weaker this set. Like a lot weaker, actually, with no encounter.
Yeah. Okay, last one. Precise planning is now the best silver in the game alongside stationary support. This is the one that says if you win or lose by 3 or fewer units, get extra gold. They buff this by 1 gold per round, and the stats basically tie stationary support as the best silver. Back to Fraud.
Agree. I think it's better. Like
Oh,
like you say, it's like tied with stationary. I think it's like easily the best silver in it clears. The thing is, people just aren't like it's an augment where you have to like be very active in trying to proc it, as in you have to make sure that the weakest people in your like especially in stage 2 you have to make sure the weakest people in the lobby can kill like a unit on your board, but then you also have to like position to like try to focus fire and kill one of their units. But if you can get it consistent, if you can kill like if you can proc it on the stage 2 rounds, it's just insane. 3 gold a round is disgusting. We saw I don't know. I believe Inconsistency gave 3 gold at one point, and it was just the best augment in the game by far for silver. And this one's kind of similar. You just have to, I mean, it says precise planning. You have to be pretty precise. I played a game with it in the tournament I played this morning, the TOC China Midset tournament, and it went very well. And I think a lot of that was the augment. It felt like completely insane to me. I'm going to be picking it every time I see it.
Oh yeah, you can get a lot of practice on Talker's Trials because you need to also do the same thing to try to lose exactly by 1 unit or something. So, okay, good stuff all around. Our topic for today to talk about fundamental skills is reroll optimization. And I think this is an important one because reroll is going to be very dominant this set, no matter what, unless they just fundamentally nerf like all the 3-star units across the board. And that's because of charms kind of interacting with rerolls. You're just basically going to have average, stronger boards. And there's a lot of econ for things like rerolls. So it almost feels like you get your gold back for rolling your shops and collecting pairs. So let's talk a little bit about reroll and how to optimize them. But first, I want to ask Dishsoap, why do people even look down on rerolling? Like as you get higher and higher in the ranks, people seem to like almost look like it almost seems like they look at reroll players and be like, oh, you guys are just not as skilled as us, the 4-cost players.
Well, the general sentiment is that reroll is a little less skill intensive because the comps you end up playing are pretty much the same every game. So you're taking out an aspect of the game, like hitting different units and like flexing them on your board that just doesn't really exist in reroll. There's like a tiny, tiny bit of it, but it's definitely not what you have to do on 4-cost rolldowns. That's where like the main disparity is. But like this game is insanely hard. Just base TFT is insanely hard. Trying to optimize it at least. Like if you want to get perfect play. So I don't think they're like reroll is definitely not no skill. There's a lot of skills you can perfect or not perfect, but there's a lot of skills you can work on in reroll. There's a lot of skills you can improve at in reroll. I would kind of agree that generally it's going to be the easier playstyle compared to like your 4-cost reroll, but that's not like a bad thing, I guess. I don't know. It's actually a good thing because it means it's easier.
I would liken it to kind of the linear aggro decks from strategy card games. I think people look at mono red, or if you played Hearthstone, you looked at like aggro hunter, and you would think that those are like really like simple and kind of easy quote brain dead decks. But even like so at the highest level, they still are hard to play. It doesn't make it mean that like you are less skilled inherently. And also personally, I believe in TFT that the best players need to be prepared to do anything. Like even Dishsoap, who is a 4-cost lover, needs to know how to play the reroll lines. Otherwise, I think he has a hole in his gameplay.
I played so much Lux at Worlds, like that Lux Jana comp.
Yeah, the porcelain mage
I
one.
think I played like 5 games of it total at Worlds, which is a lot for 3 days. So
because there's only like 17 games, something like that. So a pretty big portion.
So I mean, if it's good, like I'll play it. Like you definitely, I feel like you can't shun and just refuse to play real comps. Like if you actually want to optimize your game, I make some like jokes where I'm like, when Kog'Maw was popular in previous patches, like that I was just never gonna play Kog'Maw. But if I was actually forced to like try hard on a tournament, I would probably play some Kog'Maw. But
what do you think are the skills that separate good reroll players from weaker ones? Because people say like, "Oh, I'm not good at reroll,"
Mhm.
but if it's is it just a different skill set entirely, or is it just things about the comp specifically? Is it like niche knowledge?
A lot of the times, the game plans are going to be streamlined to a point where you do need that niche knowledge to succeed. That's going to be stuff like your like positioning against specific comps. That's going to be stuff like knowing how to itemize, knowing how to plan your itemizations, knowing like what to go, like for example, what to go on carousel to like ensure that you're going to have the most success. It's going to be your augment picks. Like you can say that that stuff applies for every comp, but the way I see it with reroll is that you have to start doing this stuff earlier into the game because it's going to be more impactful. As in, if you don't play like your stage 3 well, for example, because most reroll comps hinge on having a good stage 3. If you don't play that stage 3 well, it's going to negatively impact like the rest of your game. If you have a bad stage 3 in reroll, you might as well just FF because there's not really that much combat mechanics in this game, especially when people are going to be hitting all their forecasts and stuff on level 8 on stage 4 really early. So most of the time it's just going to be optimizing stage 3, making sure you're always taking the right augments, making sure you're always getting the most out of your items and your positioning, probably trying to get a win streak. That's I want to say is like the hardest thing. Um, and like part of that is like knowing how much gold you need to roll out exactly to get to that point where you're
Mhm.
stable enough to get that good stage 3, but then also not do too much as to kind of screw over your like chance to 3-star early. So there's definitely like a fine line that needs to be made. Like for example, I'm trying to think like last patch Kog'Maw, for example, a skill would be like scouting the lobby and determining if you needed to roll. Like say you have everything upgraded but you don't have Nunu 2. The best Kog'Maw AI in the world would be able to scout everyone and see and know for a fact if they needed that Nunu 2 or not to win the next fight, and they would like roll for it or not, for example.
Interesting.
But as humans, we just have to get experience on the game and determine if we need the Nunu or not as well. Um, I don't know. That example is a little weird, but hopefully my yapping has not been completely unintelligible.
No, I think you
Yeah.
said a lot of good stuff. I think my mind keeps going back to kind of the strategy card games like Magic the Gathering,
Mhm.
Hearthstone comparisons, because you may have fewer decisions in totality relative to some of the quote harder decks or harder comps to play, like level 4 or
Mhm.
fast 9. But the impact of your decisions are greater. So you have actually less margin of error. And
Yep.
so with reroll comps, if you make one or two crucial mistakes, it's devastating. You actually don't have many ways to come back from that. Versus with forecasts, I do think you have a little bit more margin of error, but that's because of the sheer volume of what you can do. So that's partially, I think, why some players prefer that. And I think a really good player that exemplifies this is Milk, who I hope one day we can get on the podcast just because I think the way he views the game is so unique. I think we might have to edit it a little bit but
A
when he
little
comes
bit.
onto the podcast. But I played a game with Milk actually this morning. And when I allowed him to backseat me as much as he wanted to because he wanted me to pilot a deck to test things for him for this weekend. And just listening to what he was telling me to do was really interesting because I wouldn't roll at the times that I wouldn't do, and I wouldn't roll for these specific units, and I wouldn't prioritize building a certain way. And it really challenged what I thought about a comp that I thought I knew a lot about. So it was really interesting because I do think even at the very highest level, these reroll players have so much nuanced knowledge of like intuitively what they should be doing. And then you add in layers like charms because every charm interval, we were like, should we be taking this? And I thought this was a take. He didn't think it was a take. And I think that's where you can learn a ton about the nuance of reroll that people are missing because they just think, oh, hit your 3-star Ziggs, hit your 3-star Ari, hit your 3-star Ezreal, and you're good to go. It's way more nuanced than that.
Okay, to be fair, I think those nuances exist in every single facet of TFT. I think this game is so complicated, but I think a lot of the times you get to explore those nuances a little bit more in reroll because you're doing like I guess a little bit less actions. So and your decisions are more important. So like understanding the nuances are a little more important. But I mean, I truly believe those nuances exist basically every single playstyle and every single like kind of comp you can play. Um, I mean, this game's just hard. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, and I
Yeah,
think that I just want to say that it's also true about reroll
true.
and
Agree.
more magnified, I suppose.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about some early questions to tackle then. How important is it to focus on things like economy early versus holding some of those key units? I see a lot of people make mistakes when we're VOD reviewing or even watching them. They're holding units they don't need to versus the dynamic of like, should I make 10 here? And then they break their streak. So like, wait, should I try to like feel a stronger board? Like how do we actually navigate those really tricky early stage twos?
Personally, I think that you want to hold in the early game, you want to hold the units that you're going to be itemizing first. And then ideally the units you're itemizing first are also the units you're gonna 3-star, so that kind of goes hand in hand. Um, and you can easily just sell the stuff that you're not going to be itemizing. I'm trying to think of an example. Let me just look at for like the Blitz Ziggs reroll. I don't think you have to hold the Nunu because you'll probably hit a Nunu too if you're rolling down for Ziggs and Blitz. And if it costs you econ, I feel like it's probably more worth to get the econ and get the gold rolling to get the Blitz and Ziggs earlier because Nunu is not going to get items until I don't know stage 4, stage 5, and then like maybe theoretically you're delaying the 3-star Nunu by selling him in the early game, but you would rather be in the spot where you hit all your other like your most important units early and you don't have the 3-stars on the support units because you can just get those later as you're like stabilized with the stuff with items, for example.
We were watching a tournament game where there's a person playing Ash Jax reroll, and they were holding like every Hecarim possible because I think they just had in their mind the Hecarim was broken, but they had no items ready for him. And so he just sunk like 9 gold into Hecarim too, and then just felt poor and missed their window to tempo with Ash Jax. And I think that's like a really important thing as well, like identifying when that key unit is actually just a luxury unit.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I never thought about it. Luxury unit. I'm gonna start using that. Thank you.
There you go.
But I guess I would consider luxury units as the 2 and 3 cost units that are going to provide very important traits, and you might want to 3-star them, but they're not going to be your primary carries, and they're not going to be the first things. I mean, they're not going to be the first things you want to itemize. So, like, yeah, they can be good, but if they're slowing down your primary game plan, they're probably not even worth to like hold or even upgrade early. Because like upgrading an unitemized units is just going to give you like slightly more flow line. It's not really going to change that much about your board.
Let's go through some of these like costs individually because they have specific things about them. I've heard some discussion about how very commonly at 3-1 level 4, you want to roll to about like the 30-34 gold range because then you can econ up to 50 pretty quickly again, and that's still a good amount of economy. There's been discussion about when you don't do that because of the dynamic of charms. Charms coming in makes you feel like you need a little bit more gold than usual, and you want to make sure you have extra buffer because if you buy a charm, that kind of bites into that. So is there any kind of instances where you know that you're going to be rolling only to like 40 or maybe not even slow rolling very much at 3-1 at level 4?
I think about it in 3 ways. If you're playing a hero augment and you're really only, or I guess it doesn't have to be hero augment, but if you're only going for one specific 1 cost and you have a lot of them, you're really close. I think you could actually roll to like 10 and it's fine. But that doesn't really happen very often, but that's a time you can break the rules. Another time you can, I mean, when you want to do the standard, like roll to like mid 30s, like 32, 34, whatever the number is, I don't know, I just go to mid 30 and call it a day, is you want to do that when you're playing a variety of 1 cost units that you all want to 3-star. Think about this as like the old like Zoe Ari comp, the new Ziggs Blitz comp, probably Ash Jax as well. The comps where you play multiple 1 costs that are important to 3-star. I think that's kind of important because you want like the excess of the 1 costs, but you also aren't really that likely to hit them both if you like roll to 0. The odds are just not in your favor, so you just want to hold extra, and then getting the extra like 30-ish gold helps you make 40 and then make 50 the following turns, and then you can slow off that. Times when you don't even want to dig at all is when you're relying on a bunch of 2 costs in your 1 cost reroll. An example of that, I want to say, is like Honeymancy if you're not playing like the popular version that's getting hype right now is like Blitz Ziggs Poppy for 1 cost. So not really applying it that much to that. But if you're playing like a straight up 5 Honeymancy version where you want to like 3-star your cog and your Nunuant as well, you can just not even dig on level 4 as well because you want like your level 5 odds and your 2 cost odds a little bit more. I would say this is probably how you'd want to play Ari in the previous patch, but Ari was a little different because you needed the 3-star 1 cost per hurt bonus, so that didn't really apply. But if there's ever 1 cost reroll comps that really care about their 2 costs, you could probably just slow roll. I'm trying to think of other examples. I'm kind of failing. But there probably are other examples that exist. But just to recap, you can go to 0 if you're only playing 1 cost. If you're playing multiple 1 costs, you probably want to dig to around 34-ish. I don't think the number has to be precise. Just make sure you can make 40 the next turn. And then if you're playing 1 cost reroll and you want a lot of 2 costs, you don't even have to dig at all on level 4.
What about upgraded adventure for 1 cost? If you're like trying to chase like 4 1 cost 3 stars and then trying to get the reward, is that a slow roll above 50 the entire time?
Yes, but if you're really close to 1, I think for bid space purposes, it's actually worth to dig like a lot, because if you hit one of the 3 stars early, not only can you stabilize your stage 3 a lot more and save HP, which is really important, but also it frees you bench space, and then also you can't see any more of those units in your shops, so you'll see more of the 1 cost you actually want. So if you're really close, you can for sure dig on that augment. Although I think that augment doesn't augment suck now, or wait, let me see.
I think it's just way more situational now. Before it was like a 4.0. Now it's like a 4.6.
That's not even bad. That's not even bad. I thought it was in the 5s, but I guess
no. And I think it's starting to have a little bit of a renaissance because of Blitzcrank 6 as well. So I mean, that's becoming the 1 cost that people are basing a lot of game plans on.
Yeah, makes sense.
The last thing I have about 1 costs: are you ever rolling on stage 2 at all? It's pretty obvious if you can roll above 50 gold on stage 2, but if you are not that 50, do you ever roll on stage 2?
Yes, I believe I will roll on stage 2 if I am 1 off charm on 2/6. This only happens when you get a charm that rerolls your shop on your first or second charm, but if you get a charm that rerolls your shop on the first or second charm, on 2/6 you'll be 1 off charm. And if it doesn't cost you an econ interval, you just roll there because you see your charm on that turn, and then it lets you. It means you can see your charm earlier on 3/1.
Yep, exactly.
If you're 1 off charm on 2/6, it rolls into Krugs. You can't see a charm on Krugs, so you're kind of wasting that automatic progression of your charms. So if you roll that 1 time on 2/6, like you're still in level 4 odds. If you're not losing econ interval, it's fine. You get that charm. And then you'll just be able to see 1 more charm that game. And that 1 charm can matter a lot. It can be the reroll charms like we talked about. It can be like Remove a Reforger, which is insane. It can just be something that gives you... Yeah, it can just be something that gives you a gold, which is honestly insane as well. So yeah, I very commonly roll once on 2/6 if I'm playing 1.
Love it. I think that kind of optimization is exactly what we're trying to look for in this topic, so I think that's good. All right, 2 costs. I have the big question with the level 6 roll down. I think that's the hardest part about 2 cost reroll for the most part. And we talked about it previously, where you're just saying like sometimes you do want that Nunu 2 if you need to stabilize, which is like an off tank versus not. But the general rules that I have in my mind is that I need my main item holders to be upgraded.
Yes.
And I'm going to keep rolling until that happens. Is that fair to say?
100%. Yeah, for any 2 cost reroll on your 3/2, if the 2 cost you're trying to reroll and itemize is not 2-starred, the answer is keep rolling unless it goes below 10. If you go below 10, probably stop. Unless you're on like a turbo win streak. And if you're on a turbo win streak without your 2-star 2 like upgraded, I don't even know how you got in that spot.
It might have been that you just hard committed to something that wasn't actually as good of a spot in the first place. Because if you rolled that much where you don't have enough econ, why are you trying to force a 2? It sounds like you're hard forcing a 2 cost reroll, and that's probably why you're in that spot in the first place.
Yeah, you never really want to go below 10, but past that, you would prefer to stop on like 20 or 30 gold on 3/2 and upgrade the stuff you need. But if you have to go to 10 to hit everything, go to 10 to hit everything, because it's really important to win stage 3 on 2 cost reroll.
Are you ever slow leveling? Instead of leveling to 6 at 3/2, you're leveling at 3/5, which is a pretty unusual play.
I think you can do that on 2 cost reroll that have lots of win out potential. I think the only comp that I would really classify that right now is maybe multi-strikers. But not even like I wouldn't even consider that to be like your standard multi-strikers. It has to be like something that makes your multi-striker spot insane. For example, like you have an art like a delayed artifact off silver. Um, I forgot what it's called. Like the
Latent
it turns
Forge.
latent forge. Yeah, you have that, and you get like a Zanias or something, and then your cast spot is like insane because you have a Zanias. Zanias casted in 3 is insane, so you just need to save as much gold as possible. So you don't even go for the stage 3 win. You go for max econ and then try to hit 3-star and then win out there. Generally, I'd say right now the 2-cost rerolls don't really operate like that. Most of them operate off of like tempo and then like bleeding out to a top 4. I would not delay the level if you're playing a bleed out to top 4 comp, but if you're playing a win out 2-cost comp, that can definitely be a strategy. I just don't think they're very common right now.
Do you ever go to 7 when you're rolling for 2 costs and try to just finish it there?
If your level 7 is a very strong upgrade, if it does a lot for your board, yes. If you're on your 2-cost reroll comp, if you're also rolling for impactful 3-star 3 costs, yes. Biggest examples I can think of is in Warrior reroll, where you want to reroll like Nyla, Akali, and like Katarina. Often the level 7 is what's going to get you access to the 4-cost warriors and 4 warrior, which is very, very good. And you're also rolling for Cat 3. So even if you delay like your Nyla and Akali 3 by a few turns, it can for sure be worth it because you just get the immediate spike and you're rolling for Cat 3 anyways. Another example is like, I mean, not really Hecarim because I don't really know how much you care about Kassadin and Hecarim, but that can also be kind of a dynamic there.
Cassiopeia can also sometimes go to
Yep.
7 because you end up fitting all the board a lot cleaner, and you do actually want the 3-star
Nico
3-cost
Swain.
run line at time.
Yep. Yeah. So generally, it's like if it gets you a spike and you're rolling for 3 costs as well, you can do it.
All right. And then finally for 3 costs, the 2 questions is 1, are you ever rolling for 3 costs on 6? It feels like some people do that, or they feel desperate enough to do it because maybe they're taking enough damage and they're just like they need to stabilize. Do you feel like rolling for like your 3 costs at level 6 the same time people are rolling for like 2 costs and whatnot? Is that justified?
No, not really. The thing about 3-cost reroll is it's kind of like the way they balance 3-cost reroll for like the past couple of sets is that it's very, very strong on late stage 3, early stage 4 at 2-star. It's it gets weaker at, like throughout stage 4, but then it's really, really strong again at 3-star. You don't really want to be in the 2-star for that long. You want to be hitting on kind of like on like 5-1ish. And if you want to be hitting that early, because I mean, believe it or not, like 5-1 doesn't even sound early anymore, but believe it or not, that used to be turbo early for this 3-cost reroll. I remember for example, like set 8, when we played like Kaisa Vayne reroll, it was very common to hit that on like 5-5, and you would still do okay because the 3-cost odds were just better on 6, and then you could stabilize off the 2-stars for a lot longer. Right now, the game's just kind of like accelerated to a point where you need the 3-star 3-cost very early to stabilize. In order to do that, you're going to have to be rolling on the maximum possible odds. So you're going to have to be rolling on 7 and kind of skipping your level 6.
Okay. Are you ever going to 3-5 to roll at level 7 instead of 4-1?
So the thing is, 3-5 is just a little inefficient. I think you can do it sometimes if you're like super, super rich. The reason I say it's inefficient is because one, if you're rolling down, you're just going to be losing econ intervals for 3-5, 3-6, and sometimes even wolves. So it's a little bit of gold loss there. But the other thing is, you're going to be on level 7 for a while. So if you level early, 4 of your gold is going to be locked in EXP that you can't really access unless you go level 8. And you're probably only going level 8 after you hit your 3-stars. So to me, it's kind of like you're just down 4 gold if you level early. And like sometimes you're rich enough to take that 4 gold loss plus the interest loss, but a lot of the times you're not. So even in spots where you think you're rich, I often just take the HP loss if it's not that brutal. And then roll on like 4-1 or sometimes even 4-2 instead if I have a lot of HP.
Okay. All good stuff. All good stuff. And today I think we tackled a lot of like the economy aspects of how you roll, but that's really how important it is. Even just being one round off 1 gold off, 1 shop off could be the difference between whether or not you stabilize. Thanks, Dishsoap. That was really good in-depth stuff about rerolling.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, let's go into pop quiz and see if Dishsoap knows a thing or two about some of this random trivia. Why are you giggling?
Might be a little rusty, but we'll see.
All right, okay. Well, they're not too complicated. I started easing up because I feel like I've been giving you some hard ones. So let's start off with the first one here.
Easy mode.
There's been a lot of new changes to items and whatnot, and so now there is a new clear worst artifact in the game. Before it was a different item, but now this one is like the new worst artifact in the game, and it's by a huge margin. What is it?
I have no clue. I actually have no idea.
Just take a guess what you think would be like the worst possible artifact.
I mean, the normal shit ones are. It used to be like Prowler's Claw, but I believe Prowler's Claw is like actually pretty good on like Olaf, and I mean they buffed it a lot. I think it's like Olaf Fiora. It used to be like insane on Poppy Roll, but they nerfed Poppy. Like Cutlass, but I'm pretty sure Cutlass. You just scam enough people to have like an okay placement, so I don't think it's the worst. I mean, they just buff so many. Like I don't even know. Like Blinding Jolt has like Karma and Nora, so it's not even bad. I actually have no idea.
I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. The previous worst was Spectral Cutlass, so it's not that because it's a new one. And then you have to remember that What the Forge is now in the game. So that might actually raise AVP of a lot of these ones that you might not be thinking about.
Well, the thing is, I don't think it's Scepter because it's just so broken on Warwick. It's the worst artifact on any other unit besides Warwick.
Scepter's actually like the best artifact in the game.
Yeah. So I don't think it's Scepter. I actually have no idea. I'm pretty sure it's just some random trash. Like whatever. I'll just go Gambler's Blade. I think that one's kind of mid.
Oh, so close. Actually, it's Mogul's Mail. Mogul's Mail is they nerfed Mogul's Mail really heavily.
Oh, it's just terrible now? Okay.
It's just terrible. It's like a 4.8 and clearly the worst artifact, and you don't even really want it off like What the Forge. So it's definitely like the worst one by a huge margin. Gambler's Blade second, and that's a clear second, but huge gap between those two.
Honestly, I'm glad. Fuck Moguls. I think that item's kind of boring. It's you either have a frontline item and you farm infinite gold, or you just don't. I'm kind of glad it's just bad.
Okay.
Bring back Diamond Hands.
All right, second one. We talk about all these emblems, all these verticals. This patch is about the verticals. What is the best prismatic augment at 2-1 that doesn't involve an emblem of some kind? Because it's all about the Frost Crown, the Fairy Crown, Portal Crown.
I actually have no idea. I remember it's like it doesn't involve an emblem.
Yeah. So I can read you the best performing 2-1s. Like
okay.
Frost Crown,
the best are
Crown.
like Frost Blaster, like Portal and stuff. Prismatic, yep. He said. I mean the usual suspects are the item ones like Buried, Living Forge. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably. I mean they buffed a bunch of the artifacts, so maybe Living Forge. So that's my guess.
Okay, I'm gonna accept that one because it's actually a 2-way tie. Because the other one is Tiniest Titan, which is
really they buffed that one to give 2 gold now.
Yeah. Tiniest Titan is now incredibly good at 2-1 for fast 8s and maybe even fast 9s because they give you so much more gold now. Just fun food for thought because I think people used to just associate that with like Fortune. That's it. Okay, not bad. Dishsoap. Hero augments are awful. Rank these 3 hero augments from best to worst in raw AVP.
Okay.
Spider Queen, Spin to Win, and Pillar of Flame, the new Shen hero augment.
Did they buff Pillar of Flame in the V patch or no?
They did. They also buffed Spider Queen and they buffed
all
in the V patch.
Oh, okay.
They buffed all of them.
I'm going to assume the Shin one is the worst. That's my number 3 right now. Just because I have never seen a single like game with it. And I've never seen anyone talk about it, and I'm pretty sure it's still bad. Okay, I'm gonna go at least 1 Spin to Win 2, Shen 3.
Ooh. Spin to Win, Spider Queen, and Pillar of Flame.
It's like flip Spider Queen and Spin to Win.
Yep. Spin to Win still able to get it done. I think it's because people still can get the Wukong and Jinx 3 pretty free, and it farms some average placements. What are the top 3 artifacts on Hecarim? We talked about it on the lease last time. So what do you think are the top 3 artifacts on Hecarim?
Silvermare for sure. I think it's Silvermare, Death Defiance. I don't think it's Prowler's Claw. It might be Triforce. Okay, permission to look at artifacts but not look at the stats.
Sure.
Okay, Mobile Elix doesn't have stats, right? Okay, it doesn't. We're back. Okay, I'm 100% on DD and Silvermare. I know those are the best. Other ones are it's like probably either Cutlass, Prowlers, Mittens, or Triforce. I'm probably gonna say I don't know, because the thing is Triforce is good with multis, but I don't actually know if your other units besides Hecarim matter that much. Besides like Callista, I think Callista doesn't really want Triforce. So the thing is, in the stats might be skewed for like the double Triforce augment. Silvermare, Death Defiance, Prowler's Claw. Final
That
answer.
is correct.
Oh, nice.
I actually am very impressed because Prowler's Claw was basically tied with Mins, but was separated by like 0.02.
Okay.
So I would have also said the Mins, but Prowler's Claw is technically the third best. So well done.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Triforce is better than Prowler's Claw, but like I would actually take a bet that it's just getting skewed from double Triforce maybe not being the best augment for Hecarim.
I see. Okay.
That's my guess.
I
It's
did
probably
try to
better
filter out the augments, like what's the fortune and everything like that, just
okay.
to make it cleaner. But
maybe I'm
that is
fraud,
interesting. I didn't filter out Freaky Friday. So.
Okay.
All right. And then finally, we always bring this up. What are the worst emblems in the game? If the verticals are so good, there's got to be ones that are bad. So what are the two worst? They're clearly worse than everything else. Last time it was blasters, but in the spoiler, it's not blaster this time.
Permission to look at the traits, not the stats.
Sure. Okay. We're just checking stats now, except I'm not
okay. I don't know how to prove it, but I'm not looking at stats. I'm just looking at look. I'm looking at Mobile Elix. They don't even have stats.
It's maybe the first time Dishsoap just alt tabs for reference. Okay.
I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, Bastion is definitely what I'm thinking of. I don't even think Incanter spots are like that bad because like it's is good and the Karma's okay, but maybe. I mean, there's like the Cassio comp, so I don't know. I think Mage might just be bad because like you get Mage bad, then you might just get baited into playing Mage, or like you get Mage bad, and you might get baited into playing like Nora. Okay, I'm on Mage right now. I think Mage is one of my guesses. I'm gonna go Mage Bastion. That's my guess.
Final answer.
One real quick look. The thing is, like, Hunter's like, I don't know. I've seen 600 pop off. I think it could be Incanter, but I feel like there's like too many okay Incanter comps that like surely getting a random emblem can't be that bad. Scholar got buffed. I feel like Shapeshifter's okay. It's probably not amazing, but I don't think it's bottom 2. It might be Vanguard. Nah, but Blaster comp is good. Warrior got buffed well. Oh, wait, isn't it Sugar? Like, isn't Sugar just trash? Oh, wait a second. Okay. I actually remove Bastion. We're Sugar Mage. Sugar Mage.
Sugar Mage. Lock it in.
Lock it in.
All right, that is correct. They're both awful. At 4.7, 4.8. So
okay. What's Bastion at?
Bastion is bottom 6. It looks like. Okay. So I mean, you actually danced around all of them. Hunter, Bastion, Incanter, Shapeshifter, Preservers. Those are like the worst ones besides that. So.
Yeah, it's all the pans.
It's all the pans, which people are all up in arms about frying pans, but turns out they're not that crazy.
Okay, the thing is, they probably will be crazy next set because
I think next set they will be.
They probably designed the whole next set around having crazy pans because I mean, why wouldn't they? And
I feel
we're just gonna be bitching about the pans.
I feel like next set pan's going to be crazy as well. Okay. I just can't help but feel that's going to be the case. Because if not, then like what makes them exciting then? Is probably another question to ask. Like why even put them in the game if they're just going to be mid and like whatever?
I for sure think they're going to be strong traits. Because they made... I mean, I can't remember... Like there used to be a point in the game where the craftable spats used to be like kind of mid. And the actual like broken spats are the ones you could get off Tome and Augments. And really, I think for like the past... I want to say like 3 sets that has not been the case. The best emblems have always been the craftable ones. And I think that's probably about to... I mean, I guess Pan is craftable, but I guess there's just going to be there's probably going to be a lot of strong emblems because it seems like they have a priority on making craftable emblems strong.
All right, let's wrap this up with just a quick Q&A. This one is from Empress of Tomorrow. They say, I try to do VOD reviews, but I feel like I just don't know what I should be looking for. What should I be looking for when I do a VOD review of myself?
The biggest thing for me when VOD reviewing is, I mean, I think I brought it up on this podcast before, but it's looking for disparities in expectations versus the results. So either stuff that you were surprised that went well when you thought it was weak, or stuff that you think was like you thought you were in a good spot, but then you actually did badly. I think those are like the games you want to VOD review. As for what to actually look inside for the VOD reviews, probably just like look at your like big rolldowns, making sure you're like trying to see if you're like missing any units or not. Like actually like being super slow, looking at every single shop can be a thing. Um, Making sure you're positioning right. This is where kind of like the expectation thing comes up. If you feel like you lost a fight to someone who you think looked a lot weaker to you than you, or you felt like you're surprised you lost the fight, maybe see how the fight played out and like see what positioning you could have maybe done better if it was like a side diff or something. Definitely go back and see your augment selection as well. Probably the easiest way to do it if you're not reviewing with someone else is just to like see what augment you took compared to the stats. And if you really want to go deeper with that, like look at the stats with a bunch of extra filters. For example, like what comp you have and like who you're carrying and stuff. I think those are like the biggest things you want to watch out for. If you're like kind of like getting into the game, that stuff is kind of hard to do solo. So there's a lot of very, very helpful people in the TFT community that will just bother you with literally anyone. I wouldn't really know where to find those people, but
Our
I mean,
Discord.
yeah. Oh yeah.
TFT Academy Discord.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you just pull up and you just like show your VOD, I'm pretty sure like 2 or 3 people will just yap about your game. And this is not even like just true for like my Discord, like or the TFT Academy Discord. I'm pretty sure I've just seen this in like every single TFT Discord. For just various like groups and streamer communities and stuff. People in this game, I want to say they're very helpful, but mostly it's just kind of fun to backseat.
That and they do want to help. A lot of people want to help. I'm not sure if they can help sometimes, but they want to.
If you're like struggling to like do it on your own, maybe like talk to some other people. But besides that, just the stuff I said to look out for.
I would say that if you're also kind of in a starting position, just focus on one skill at a time. No different than if you are trying to get into like a sport. Let's say you're trying to play tennis. Just focus on your forehand and just work on like that aspect before you try to like do everything. Don't try to do like every type of swing. In the same way for TFT, if you're just building up the core skills, because we do get a lot of people around like the gold, emerald, plat range that ask questions about this kind of stuff. How do I improve with like VOD stuff? It's just like go back, look at 10 games and see whether or not you felt like you were doing a good job managing your econ. Look at 10 games of whether or not you were doing a good job selecting things like the right augments and kind of cross-reference that stuff that Dishsoap said. And just focus on one skill at a time because there's a ton of different things that we can go over all the time. And it's very, very difficult to master all of them in TFT, if not impossible. And so just take your time to go over them one at a time will simplify things a lot. All right. That's a great episode. Really long one here, but I mean, it's a huge patch, so it kind of deserved an action-packed podcast episode. So what's next on the table for you, Dishsoap?
I'm going to be playing in... I mean, I think I'm going to be playing in the Cup this weekend.
Are you deciding whether or not you want to take a break again?
I don't know. I thought I was. Maybe I'll get the competitive fire in me when I get closer. But it is what it is. I'm not really stressing about it too much. And then probably just playing TFT when I want, I guess.
All right, sounds good. So you can catch Dishsoap live on his stream, twitch.tv/Dishsoap. As for me, I'll be covering the Tacticians Cup #2 on the co-stream over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Frodan. All right, thank you so much to everyone who supports TFT Academy, both here on this channel and the Patreon. From Frodan and Dishsoap, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.